Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is for you. My name is Eva Marie Everson. I am the president of Word Weavers International, the director of Florida Christian Writers Conference, and we call these segments Eva Marie and the Experts. And my expert today is Kimberley Woodhouse. I've been so excited about this particular interview because I love Kim. And I love her work, and we have just been we've never really chatted a whole lot, just you and me, but always kind of through emails and that kind of thing. So I was I just learned something here. I was going to minimize my page so I could read your wonderful bio, and it just told me I can't do that while it's recording. So here is what I know, because I just read it. Number one, I can't remember all of them. I do remember the Holt medallion. You've written a lot of books, primarily fiction. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. No nonfiction, just fiction.
A few nonfiction.
Okay, we can talk about that too, but primarily fiction. She's won a slew of awards, and they are well deserved. I really enjoy her work. And I'm going to say, I'm picky. I'm very, very picky. If you don't catch me within the first couple of pages, it's over between us. there's no going back. But so Kimberley, because I cannot lower my page, apparently, tell us a little bit more about you, about what you write, who you write for, and those kinds of things.
Oh, thanks. Well, it's just such a joy to be here. So thank you, Eva. I have admired you and just respected you so much for so many years and all the contact that we had. So just from my heart, this is a blessing. So thank you.
Thank you.
I write for Bethany House, and I also write for Barber. I've written for Tyndale and for Moody, and focus on the family. I'm trying to think of who all I've written. My 27th book is about to come out. Can I show it?
You absolutely can show it.
This is the only copy I have. The very first copy that they sent me. A Deep Divide. It comes out on October 5th. It's my 27th. It's a historical romantic suspense taking place in the Grand Canyon. I've written with Tracy Peterson a number of books. I've written with my daughter. I've written nonfiction, a few devotionals, and then also one based on our story, because our daughter has a rare nerve disorder. So we've gotten a lot of media attention from that. So the publisher asked us if we would write the story. And I said, well, I've never written nonfiction. Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, they say write what you know.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
I knew the story. Yeah.
Yes. Very good.
My husband is a pastor, and we have been married it'll be 30 years this year. And our first grandbaby arrived this summer, which was just so much excitement.
Yes.
And it's been a thrill. It's been a thrill.
Yeah. And we were talking before we started recording, and I was asking Kimberley, about, how she got into writing and that kind of thing. So would you mind sharing that? Because I think it's very interesting.
Oh, sure. Well, I grew up a musician. I mean, since I was 3 years old, this was my focus, piano and voice. And I had a scholarship to Juilliard. And music was my life. My great aunt had her doctorate in music. So I thought that's what I was going to do. I was going to get my doctorate in music, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but
you were going to have it.
Yeah, I was going to have it. I was 15 when I graduated from high school. So I was really young, did everything just way ahead in life. And I was getting ready to decide on which school of music or conservatory I was going to go to. And my dad's a pastor, and he had gone to Dallas Theological Seminary, and the dean of students from this little bitty Bible college called me, a man who'd gone to seminary with my dad. And he said, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our Bible college. And I hear that you are interested in majoring in music. There's someone I want you to speak with. And they got this little old man on the phone. And yes, he was a little old man then. He was in his 80s. He got on the phone and talked to me. And he was from Juilliard. He had been a concert pianist in the 1940s. And then he went back and taught at Juilliard. And then when he retired, he had traveled around the country and taught at small Bible colleges to give back. And so that's where I went. First day, I met my husband.
How about it?
And yeah. So, I mean, I love how God does things. So music was still everything. We got married. My husband's a pastor. I thought, okay, I'm just going to use the gifts that God has given me. Music was what I knew. Music was everything. You know, my whole life had been competitions and just music.
Yeah.
It was just all music. And my English professor in college had told me that I was a really good storyteller. And I looked at him, I was like, I'm a music major, really? I was like, I love to read. I love story. I didn't know I could write.
Yeah.
So that was the first seed. And then when our son was born, he was really sick. And one of the nights staying up with him, I just had all this creative stuff. And I started writing stories in the middle of the night, not thinking that anything was ever going to happen with them and not thinking anybody would ever know. And then when the Lord called us to the mission field in Alaska, I had a friend over that was helping pack our house. She was in the other room, supposedly packing, but she wasn't. She had been in there reading stories. And she came in with a ream of paper and she whacked me over the head with it and told me I was hiding my light under a bushel. And if I didn't do something with it, she was going to kill me. Everybody needs a friend who will threaten them.
That's right. Well, now we have a threat.
So that was how it all started. And she really convicted me because I said, I'm a musician. I don't know anything about writing. And I said, I love to read, but I don't know anything about writing. And I was crying on the floor. And she looked at me and she said, you know, Kim, she said, I think God is doing this because music is what you know. You can get in front of thousands of people and play or sing, and it's no big deal. And you rely on your training and on what you know and all of this that you've done all these years. It's easy for you. So that maybe God wants to do this through you so that you know it's completely of him. And I've tried to keep that. I'm going to cry. Tried to keep that in the back of my mind, you know, the whole time. It's like, okay, God, this is yours. You brought me here. What do you want me to do?
And he's done a great job of it so far. Yes.
Oh, thanks.
He really has. Well, one of the things that we want to talk about today is, and Kimberly just mentioned it, and that is writing as a solo artist and then writing with a partner. Now, you mentioned that you have written with Tracy Peterson, and of course, just multiple talented Tracy Peterson, and has won tons and tons of awards. And I've enjoyed her work, both historical and contemporary, just really have. So let's talk about, first of all, and we'll just focus on her for right now. Sorry, Tracy, we're just going to focus on you. Okay. But how did the two of you decide you were going to write together? There's a humor there. Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the story that I just told you. When my friend threatened my life, she gave me a deadline and I knew nothing about anything in the writing world. And so I wrote my favorite author, who was Tracy Peterson. And I actually heard back from her. And then when we were on the mission field, we became prayer partners and they were praying for us where we were. And she just mentored me and gave me great advice. And down the road, they had a granddaughter that was born with some medical issues. And we just connected even more because of Kayla, my daughter, and her issues. And so we had been really good friends. And by the time we started writing together, she's like family. My kids have called her Aunt Tracy since they were little. And I would have never, we said this in the class we taught for ACFW last week, I would have never asked her. I could have never asked her to do this. And we were on the phone one day, we'd been praying, and she asked me about, the next project that was coming out and what the goal was and blah, blah, blah. And just out of the blue, she goes, you know what? I think we need to write together. So Kim just about fell off her chair when that happened. And I was kind of shocked. Exactly. And I'm like, huh? Wait, what did you just say? And she said, I'm going to call my editor. I was like, okay. And then she calls me back and she said, yeah, let's throw something together, a proposal. And I want to write with you now. So I have to give Tracy all the credit. She's brilliant. And she said, jump. And I said, how high?
And you said how high, exactly. I wrote several books with Linda Evans Shepherd, the Potluck Club, and we just won tons of awards and accolades and things like that. And it's funny how, she and I came together with this idea. It was really hers. She had just come back from a women's retreat, and she's calling me. I'm actually on my way back from somewhere. I don't remember where, but I was in an airport. And she said, have you ever noticed, like, when you go to women's retreats, there are always the same types of women there. Like, there's the leader, and then there's the one who always shares in love. And there's the really pretty one that's all made up, and then there's the one that sulks. And so she said, wouldn't it be funny if we just, kind of came up with this idea? And I remember that it was so loud in the airport, and I was so tired. And I'm like, can I call you back on this? And she said, sure. And so I kind of put my head back for all of 3 seconds. It just hit me. Oh my gosh, she is so right on this. That is so true. This could be some of the most fun I've ever had. And I called her right back, and I said, okay, I'm awake now. And this is a great idea. And we came up with a method, that worked for us, is how we would do this. So with the Potluck Club, there were 6 main characters. She wrote 3, I wrote 3. And what we did was we had a general plot line, but we kind of, everything was organic. So I didn't always know what her characters were going to do. And then I would get a chapter. Now I've got to get my characters to respond and react to that. But we have to stay in the plot, So much fun doing it that way. And I would fly up to Frisco, Colorado, and we would hole up in her cabin for a week or more. And she in one room, I'm in another, and we're cackling our heads off because we didn't see something.
I love it.
So, and it worked for us. That might not work for everybody. So how does it work for you and Tracy? And let's talk about some of the pitfalls that could be there in both cases.
Oh, right. Well, I've done kind of what you did with Linda, with my daughter, Kayla. She wrote the teen characters in books, and I wrote the adults. So all the POV scenes, that were from those characters, she wrote, and then I wrote. And we both write fast and furious, my daughter and I. And so we would sit down and write. And she was only 12 during the first one, because she was the youngest published full-length novelist from a royalty-paying publisher. That's a mouthful.
Wow.
But we would throw our jump drives across, the couches, and share them and read what the other wrote, because we'd plan out on whiteboards, the next few scenes. And then so we knew where we were going and what was happening, and she'd write her and I'd write mine, and then we'd trade. And then one day, a pitfall, here we go. She goes, Mom. And I'm like, what? And she goes, you killed off so-and-so, and I need them. And I was like, oh, well, I'll bring them back to life. But that's one of the things. With Tracy, it's a completely different process. And this is something that she's done with others. And like Judith Pella did with her, when Judith Pella first brought her into Bethany House.
Right.
And so what we do is, and I'm an organized freak, so I love this process, but we will plan out the whole book, because Tracy's really big on synopses. I mean, she is not only the queen of historical fiction, but she is the queen of synopses. The woman can write a synopsis like no other. And I hate writing synopses, but I understand they are very beneficial. They are good, but we'll plan the whole thing out, and we'll do that normally via email. When we lived in the same place, we did it in person, but we'd take, a lot of notes. And so we would just bounce ideas back and forth, and in emails, we color code, so we know when the next person has added something. We don't delete anything. We leave everything in there so we can see all of it until we decide exactly what we want to do. And so that's a several week process as we go through all of that. And once we know exactly how it's going to be, she'll write this really long synopsis for the book. And then after she writes the synopsis, then I write the whole first draft.
Yes.
And I leave it 10, 15,000 words at least short. It's the complete story, but 10, 15,000 words short. I send it to her, and that's where I call it the Tracy Brilliance stage. She adds her brilliance, because she's written 25 books.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, she's
Mhm.
brilliant.
Yes.
And so she'll add and weave all of her stuff in. She'll add questions and comments. You know, there will be times when I'll put something in a note to her in the manuscript. And it's like, okay, Tracy, I really feel like you have a better handle on this piece of the research, or this character that, you know, it was your idea for this character, just this little sideline person. Maybe you can write this scene, you know, a little bit better. And so then she sends it back to me, and then I go back through and add my not as good brilliance. And then I edit the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, and then I do all the editing with the editors and all of that. So she calls me the senior partner because I do the bulk of the research and the bulk of the writing.
Yes.
But we've done the whole planning and everything together, and she's the senior author. You know, her audience is obviously huge.
Yeah,
and so it's great though, because nobody can ever tell who wrote what in our books, and her writing is totally sprinkled in, you know, throughout the whole manuscript. And so we always find that a lot of fun, that the reader's like, well, we can't tell who wrote what. And it's like, yay.
Yeah. We had contests. Linda and I had contests to see if, you know, could people figure out after meeting us and getting to know us, who wrote this one, who wrote this one. And inevitably they were wrong. It was so funny to me that, you know, people, a lot of times, especially, I believe it was with, I want to say it was with Evangeline, who was like the real bossy, you know it all matriarch of the church, you know, person. And they really thought that was Linda, because, you know, Linda is fantastic at organizing and getting it done and this and that. Well, so am I, but she's kind of been out there for so long, you know, and so people thought Evangeline was her, but Evangeline was me. So it's like, no,
I love it.
One, sorry, you know, I'm the bossy one. And so it was really fun and funny. So I love doing that though. And then what you just described though is a completely different way than I imagined you were going to describe it. Because I think that what we know is that for every duo who works together, there's just that many methods of doing it. So let's talk about pitfalls then. What are, let's say somebody's out there listening and they, you know, especially within my Word Weavers membership, and they are thinking, oh, I could write a book with, you know, my critique partner and we could work together. But there are pitfalls.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about some of those real quick.
We shared a bunch of them in the class this last week, because it's not stuff that we have experienced.
Yes.
And we prefaced it that way so that people understood why we were giving the advice and teaching the way that we were, because we didn't have these problems, but we know a lot of others who have. Some of our biggest things, and I'm just going to read off of this list really quick, is the fact that you've got to care and truly love the other person. You need the same goals, ideals, and focus. You need to respect one another. You need to listen to one another. Pray together and separately. Be organized, encourage one another, hold each other accountable, know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and never discount the other's opinion. Because Tracy and I are so close, and we have been such good friends for such a long time, we had a relationship that was different than most co-authors, you know, enter into. And I've had the privilege of writing with my daughter, which of course was another great relationship. Kayla and I never had any issues because it was mother and daughter, and we were just really close, and we just had so much fun with it. But I have had some friends who the relationship that they have had with their co-author has completely been destroyed through a writing project. So if you don't tackle all the stuff, I think, ahead of time and have the hard discussions before you get into this agreement, you know, together, then I think you're going to hit a lot of the pitfalls, which can be that you can completely disagree on something, and you can play the blame game. Like another person had told me that her biggest thing was like, whenever they had a problem, it's like, well, you're the one who came up with that character. Well, you're the one who came up with that idea. Well, you're the one. And it's like, oh, wow. So those are things you want to really tackle ahead of time and make sure that all of these things line up. I mean, do you truly care for that other person? Do you love that other person? Can you put that other person first? Just like in
Right.
any kind of relationship that we should biblically, the other person should always come first. We need to love that person first. And goals, ideals, and focus all need to be in the same place. Respect, listen to one another, prayer. Tracy and I have been doing Bible study and prayer together once a year, once a week for years. And so that foundation was so huge. And then also the fact that we are just on the same page in the sense that I have a purpose statement for my writing. And that is, I want to point the non-believer to God. And I want to challenge the believer in his or her walk with Christ. So it's twofold. And I believe that everything we do should be done to the very best of our ability for the glory of the Lord.
Yes.
So always working on the craft, always praying over your work, because it's his story. It's not ours. It is his story completely. We have to remember that it's his story.
That's right.
And I think if you can tackle all of these things with a co-author, before you actually start doing it, rather than, oh, I want to write with my critique partner. And then you start doing it and you're like, what did I do?
Well, let me ask you this. What do you find easier, working as a solo artist or working with another author?
I'd have to say both, because it has become so wonderful writing with Tracy. It's been wonderful from the very beginning. We just work together so well.
Yeah.
And it's always nice to have somebody else to bounce off of. Like if you're like, well, I just don't think this is going to work. And then you talk to each other.
Yes.
And it's really easy to get unstuck, when you have a collaborator, somebody else to bounce ideas off of. But we both write fast. I write fast with my daughter. I write fast with Tracy. I write fast on my own. So
yes, me too.
I think they're pretty equal in my point of view. One is not easier than the other, but I think there's advantages to both.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are times when I want to be alone with my own creative juices. I think though that the way you and Tracy do it is it lends itself to the ability to still be alone with your own creative juices. And then you have someone who comes in, and I always call it a fluff and puff, does it just, like I said earlier, sprinkles her own pixie dust in it and just kind of fills in the holes, because we all know that when we write first draft, there are holes. There are definitely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking today, I always wish that every publishing house out there would just hire me to read the books before they publish the books, because inevitably I find the typographical errors and things like that. And in this book that I'm reading right now, which is an ABA title from a big house, with lots and lots and lots of readers. It's done in 2 first-person points of view. Okay. And so when it's him, it's listed as him. When it's her, it's listed as her. And so it was from her point of view. So the I was her. And then all of a sudden there was I said, and I went, no, that was him. And I realized that, and I know how easy it is to do that. Of course it's easy to do that, because you just get going. And so, there are things like that I will inevitably find, because, somehow I think.
Maybe you should. You just need to, put yourself out there for that job. Say, hey,
oh my gosh, no, they might call. Oh no. No, but I will actually mark in a book. I have like a pencil, and I'll do my little editor's notes, little dots and tittles and things like that. And but because it did jar me. And but I realized what it was, and I wondered just how many people would notice that. When you're writing with someone, that's the joy of it, is you do have that, like a critique partner on site almost. Have that person who says you misspelled that word, or she was wearing red gloves when she walked in and white gloves when she walked out. So what happened here? Stuck them in the beach or something. And so that's the really wonderful part about it. But also, I know when I worked with Linda and when I worked with Miriam Feinberg Vamosh, we wrote the book. She's Jewish, I'm Christian. We traveled Israel together, and we wrote it from those two perspectives, and
great.
it just really got into what the land was about, and all of that, and the biblical applications and this and that. But as we wrote together, there's just something about those. If you go about it like you just said, there's something about the creative juices coming together. It's lovely. It's a lovely thing.
I like that word. It is lovely.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. And you talk about praying together and all of that, and you can imagine. I mean, one of the most this is one of the most wonderful times of my life was writing Reflections of God's Holy Land with Miriam. Being Christian and Jewish, but the root of my faith is her faith. And then the really cool thing is she has spent the last 25, 35 years leading Christian tours in Israel. So the joke was, because in my theological studies and my degree has always been a bent toward Old Testament theology. So the joke became that I knew the Old Testament better than her, and she knew the New Testament better than me. And just how that worked together was it was just a beautiful thing. And it ties your hearts together, and it ties your spirits together, but you do have to be careful. Now, let me just throw one more thing out, and then I'll let you go, because I don't like to tie people up for too long.
You're fine.
So you are, you have Bethany House, and you have an agent. Tracy have a separate agent, or do you both have the same agent? You have the same agent.
Tracy does not have an agent.
Oh, she does not have an agent. Do you have an agent?
I have an agent.
You have an agent. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about that for just a moment, because one of the things that I have seen, and this is where the warning comes in, is two people want to come together and write together, and they don't have agents, and they don't have proper contracts. And then they decide they're going to do something like self-publish or publish with a really small house that's not equipped for this. Let's talk about the warnings where that's concerned. What you need to do to protect yourself.
I am not an expert at the whole indie side of things, because I've been traditionally published and everything. So my recommendation would always be to have an agent. Nowadays, it's a must. I think it's a must. And the agent is the one who's supposed to legally review all contracts and make sure that everything is safe and good for you. And they get to negotiate, and they do all the fun stuff, so that you don't ever have to be the bad guy, which is great. Even though Tracy does not have an agent, we speak around the country together, and we've done a whole lot of book tours and everything. And people always ask that question. And she said, well, when I came in the 90s, it wasn't necessary.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah.
She said, but it is necessary now. And she's been with Bethany House for so long. Yeah. She's exclusive with them, that there is a huge relationship of trust.
There's a big difference there. Yeah.
Yeah. And her publisher, and what's going to happen. And she always has a lawyer, review all of her contracts and everything. But my recommendation would always be to go with an agent. And from the perspective of some friends who have done this and it did not go as well, I would say make sure you have separate agents.
Yes.
Because that way the separate agents could get in there and work for you, so that the friendship is not hindered or destroyed.
Yes, absolutely. And for anyone who says, we don't have a contract yet, but we want to come together, write everything down, sign it, seal it, deliver it, whatever you need to do.
I agree.
So you can find contracts online, writing as a duo or whatever.
Yes.
But make sure that everything is written down. If you're like, for example, when Linda and I first came up with the idea for the Potluck Club, we did not have a publisher, and we ironed it all out. We wrote the proposal. We wrote the first 3-4 chapters. I don't know how many chapters we wrote, but we wrote the first few chapters, and we shopped it, just the two of us. But we had everything written down on paper. We, sealed in blood almost. So there would be no misunderstandings how this was going to work. And, it actually, and I love telling this story, because this is that story of patience and what you do in the meantime. We continued on writing and what we were doing separately for 18 months before Baker Revell called us and said, we want to publish this. And then the next like 6 years, we were tied to each other.
Wow.
And it was wonderful. But again, we didn't have a contract yet with a publishing house. So we needed a contract with each other.
Right.
And whether that's a legal contract or that you sit down and you write it all out and you sign it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a copy, so there are no misunderstandings. That is a warning I would give every single time.
Yes.
I don't care how close you are. I don't care how long you've known each other, especially when creative things start happening. So, and especially when you're writing for the kingdom, because we do have an enemy.
Amen.
I can't when we do things for the Lord. So what's the best way to stop that business? That's to divide us.
Yeah. When
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you go ahead.
It was soon after Extreme Makeover, excuse me, that I got a call. I'm gonna take a sip of water.
Okay, do that.
I inhaled too fast. Excuse me. The Wednesday after it aired, all 5 of the big publishing companies in New York called.
Mm-hmm.
And they all asked for our story. And they knew that I had been writing fiction, and they knew that I had an agent and that I was trying to get published. But they wanted nonfiction, they wanted the story. And they all said the same thing. And it was weird. This one day, I got all these phone calls in this one day. Sorry, excuse me.
It's okay. It's all right.
And they said, but we want you to take God out of the story.
Oh.
And at that point, I thought, okay, Lord, this might have been my only opportunity to ever get published. But no, it didn't even take, half a second for me to decide. And I told all of them no. I said, because he is the story.
Yeah.
He is the story. I had no idea if anything would ever happen with my writing after that. And I had no idea what God had planned, but I knew that I needed to stand firm on that. So I would encourage everyone to remember who is the author of your stories and who gives you the stories.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to go back. Extreme Makeover.
Yeah.
Because we didn't talk about that.
No, we didn't. Sorry.
When was that? And what was it about?
That was in 2007.
Uh-huh.
And they came and built us a house because of our daughter's rare nerve disorder that she has.
Okay.
So, yeah, you can still find it online. And we've been on a lot of other shows, Discovery Health and the Monta Williams Show and Good Morning America. And I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff out there. So it's funny when they air, and they're old and, people will write in through the website. I'll get this influx of email and they all think that my kids are still little, from when they were on the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a blessing. But that was a little piece of the journey that I didn't put in there, but I just want to encourage people because you need to remember who is the author, who is the author, and whose story it is. And when you keep that perspective in the right place,
I love that.
You never know what God's
so
going to
much.
do.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me today. Thank you, all of you out there who are listening. And Kimberley, how can they find you?
Just my name, KimberleyWoodhouse.com. Just make sure you spell it L-E-Y, but I think we have all the domains. If you just did KimWoodhouse.com or Kimberley L-Y, it probably goes to the same place.
Yes.
But I'm all over. It has all of my Instagram and Facebook and BookBub, and everything is on the website. So I would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So again, it's Kimberley Woodhouse. Okay. Thank you again for joining us. And to the rest of you, I will see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you.